Hello and welcome to my free online training video. I am really excited to bring this to you guys. This is going to be an in-depth look at what you will need to know to learn guitar and how I used my patented rule of 7 to become a master guitarist without wasting any time or money on useless and unimportant lessons. So let's get right into this. So here is what we are going to look at with this program. We are going to talk about my journey to becoming a master guitarist, how I got there, specifics of what I did, what I should have done, and what I didn't do. I'm going to try to steer you away from the negative things that I did as much as I possibly can because I have a lot of experience in learning what to do to learn guitar, and that also means I have a lot of experience in learning what not to do. So hopefully you guys can learn from that. And lastly, I wanted to share some of the handcrafted tips I have created, like the rule of 7, which I already talked about a little bit, to really just get you to play guitar as quickly and efficiently as possible. So really quickly about me, my name's Dan. I've been playing guitar for about 6 or 7 years now. It is 2020, and this picture was taken from back in 2014. Believe it or not, it's a screenshot from a video. This was my first ever performance, really. And as you can see, I'm kind of staring at my hands there and wearing really not good looking cargo shorts, which is always great. So, what's going on here is this was my first recital, and on my right there was my music teacher at the time. Great man and great teacher, but I'm just going to share some of my negative experiences with this. So this was about 6, 7 years ago. I'm currently a junior in college, and this was, as I said, my first performance. This teacher was good, not great. I felt like I wasn't really progressing as much as I would have liked, and he was kind of telling me which songs to learn, which wasn't great. I wanted to kind of learn a few songs that I really wanted to, but we never really got to those, which wasn't super fun. And after this, I kind of came away with the conclusion that I really needed to rely on somebody else. And I never really had the confidence to teach myself what I needed to know. So after this, shortly after this, I took a small break, and I lost 2 years of potential time to be practicing and improving. So what happened in those 2 years? I saw some other people that I knew who played just kind of fly by me in terms of their ability. They got really, really good, and I kind of just didn't really pick up my guitar. Didn't have a lot of motivation during this time, and I really just had the attitude that I couldn't learn certain songs. I mean, I just had a really bad mindset and didn't have the confidence that I originally had. And I really needed. I knew that in order, if I wanted to get back on the guitar journey, I would need to enjoy the process, and that is probably the biggest takeaway I can recommend from this video is that if you really want to do this, you're going to have to enjoy it. Just like anything in life that is going to take a while or take a lot of effort, if you don't love or like what you're doing, it's going to be twice as hard for you. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. Really skipped that. The reason I got back into it was some of these people that I knew who were getting really, really good. I kind of was talking to them and asking them, hey, like, do you have any tips? Because I kind of gave up. So seeing their ability kind of really pushed me to get back on track and got me motivated again, which was great because I don't know if it would have happened had I not had a good network of people. So this was 2 years later at camp, some kind of camp, I forget exactly where. But yeah, this was taken by one of the staff members. I was just playing guitar outside, having a great time. And it was right around this time that I asked the people who were getting good, I said, hey, kind of what are you doing differently? Because my approach isn't really working. So I asked them what their journey was like, what techniques they were using, what resources they were using, and this really kind of turned everything around for me and helped me create this roadmap, which I'm going to share with you. So I had that realization, and I kind of developed this rule of 7, which I'm going to explain in just a minute here, about the learning process and how you should go about learning, because there's definitely a right and a wrong way to do it. And I would definitely say I did the wrong way first. So I'm going to help you guys avoid that. So yeah, as I said, my original plan was just completely leading me not the most efficient way. And this rule of 7, at one point I was learning so many songs that I literally could not keep track in my head of all of the songs that I knew. So I had to write all of them down somewhere, because I had just had so many that I would say I kind of memorized, but I didn't want to forget them. So I had to literally write them down, because there were so many that I had learned so quickly that I literally I was just forgetting like a week later, because I was able to just learn something in a few minutes, a few hours, and just learn a ton of stuff, and I would already forget what I had learned. So that was definitely kind of the breakthrough moment for me. And as of right now, I believe it's October 18th, 2020. So about 6, 7 years later, and I have decided to start this guitar program, which is a great decision, and bring some knowledge to you guys. I can, as I said, learn pretty much any song, depending on the difficulty, in just a matter of minutes or hours, which is a lot of fun. And in my head right now, I could probably play close to 100 songs just from memory, which is really fun to be able to just whip those out at any sort of gathering, or just play for myself. And just having an extensive list of songs in your head is just a great life skill to have. I've also started giving a few lessons to friends and family, and that's kind of what inspired me to start this program, because I've gotten such positive feedback from them that they said you really need to start bringing this to other people, and using social media and creating a website has been the best way that I've found to do that. So I've also performed in not a many, but definitely a few like open mics or just like jam sessions with people that have gotten a little bit of attention. And those are just a blast. There's nothing better than just playing some of your favorite songs with your favorite people. It's really a great way to connect with people, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. As I said, founded Get Started Guitar School, the page you see on the right here. It's been relatively successful. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people saying they want to see more content, so that is pretty much why I'm bringing this to you right now. Moving forward, as I said, a bunch of people have given me feedback. I've already helped a few people, but I want to bring this to as many people as I possibly can. So let's put yourself in my current shoes for 2 seconds, if you can picture any of these. So imagine being able to pretty much endlessly entertain yourself by learning songs and sharing it with other people. Imagine if you had the ability to learn any song you wanted in minutes. You heard something on the radio, and then you just said, wow, I want to learn that, play that for people down the road or at some point in the future, and being able to do that in minutes, it's a great feeling. Imagine feeling confident enough to get up in front of any number of people and perform. That picture back from 2014 was not very fun for me, I would say. I was absolutely freaking out. I'd never performed for any kind of group of people before. So it was pretty scary, but I was able to do it. And the more you practice, the the less the size of the crowd matters, because once you feel confident, it's like performing for 2 people or 200 people. It's really the same thing, because you can play it with your eyes closed. So, and I would say most songs I can play from memory. I don't really need any sort of references anymore. I could do a lot of stuff, as they say, with your eyes closed, because the muscle memory is just so important. I also met so many people in high school and college through just music groups. I even thought about forming a band with some people from high school, but that never really got off the ground. We just kind of stuck to jam sessions and kind of informal gatherings, but definitely still tons of fun. And I would say one of the best parts about this whole thing is that I don't even have to ask anyone for help anymore. People come to me, which is it's really interesting to see that shift. And once you hit that point, it's a lot of fun. So moving forward, just a few quick things to talk about here before we really get into it. You don't really need any music experience at all. This is kind of designed for people who want to play guitar but don't really have any music knowledge. That would be ideal. You don't need a super nice guitar. Pretty much anything with 6 strings will do, and I get the question a lot. Doesn't matter if you have an acoustic or electric. It does not. They're pretty much the same thing, with the exception of what sound it makes. So if you have one or the other, no worries there. Yeah, you will probably not need to block off huge chunks of your schedule. The whole idea of this strategy is to minimize the amount of time you'll need to practice. So don't worry about having to spend like hours like every single day trying to perfect these strategies, because this whole thing is designed to minimize that time. Excuse me. You also don't need very much music theory knowledge, if any. I'm still relatively limited in my amount of music theory knowledge, and I know hundreds of songs. So knowing how songs are written isn't really important, but being able to recognize some patterns will come in handy. And another thing is, you really could do this from anywhere in the world. All you really need is a guitar and a computer. You don't really need any sort of like private studio or anything like that. You really just need some kind of device where you can watch the rest of this and have a guitar and really just have that motivation to do it. You shouldn't need all the resources that a professional musician would have. And I did start playing when I was 14, and this, I would say, is a good age to start. If you're younger, that's okay. If you're older, that's definitely okay, but you want to have the resources to be able to do this. So I would say 14 and above is probably a good starting point. And my results did take quite a while, mainly because of that big break that I took. And your journey will definitely not be the same as mine, hopefully, because I'm trying to share the things that I did that you should avoid. So your journey will definitely not be the same as mine. So this would be ideal for somebody who wants to play guitar for themselves. It's a skill you can play for the rest of your life, so really no downside in attacking this wholeheartedly. The second thing is, it's something that you do have to want to do for yourself. You want to be able to entertain yourself or others. If you're trying to do this for someone else or because someone's telling you to do it, it might not be as enjoyable. But whatever your motivations are, that's okay. You just have to enjoy the process. And lastly, somebody with little to no experience, as I said. And the ideal candidate for this, I would say, would be someone who's tried already to learn a little bit. The more experience you have, great. But you really don't, if you consider yourself to be like an intermediate player, I would say this is probably not for you. Just to hit on those again, if you already have a ton of experience with other instruments or music theory, probably not for you unless you have no knowledge of guitar. But I mean, if you can play other instruments, it might transfer over very easily. So that's just something to look out for. If you are, as I said in the last slide, if you're somebody who wants to do this and you don't really have the motivation for it, and you're trying to do it to like impress somebody or do it for someone else, it's probably not going to work out in the long term, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be performing for a big group all the time. It's going to be a lot of practicing by yourself. So you have to want to do this, and you can't rely on other people's feedback all the time to keep yourself motivated. And as I said, if you can't motivate yourself and deal with really minor setbacks occasionally, then this might be a little bit overwhelming. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this and talk about the exact topics we're going to cover in this training session. The first part is going to be why do most self-taught guitarists give up after a certain amount of time, and what you need to do to avoid giving up and how to stay motivated. Secondly, we're going to look at that rule of 7 that I touched on a little bit, and we're going to talk about how to use this in order to learn pretty much any song you want by practicing for a minimum of about 35 minutes per week, and I'll show you exactly why I chose that number. Lastly, we're going to take a quick look at some of the tips and tricks I've developed over my journey of how to become a master guitarist in 3 of what I think are the most helpful steps that I can give to you. So if you're still here, I really appreciate you sticking around, and we're going to jump right into this. So as I said, bullet point 1 is why do so many self-taught guitarists give up, and what can you do to avoid this? Well, having a plan is extremely important. If you try to just go on any resource and you don't really know what to look for, that is just not going to be very helpful for you. The best example of this would be watching just random YouTube videos, or just Googling, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? If you don't really know why you're doing each of those things, then it's not going to be super helpful for you in the long run. And that is why having a roadmap is so important. Secondly, the point of this whole thing really is just to save time, because chances are if you do watch YouTube videos for long enough, you could learn a number of helpful things, but if you don't know which ones to watch and why, then you're just going to be wasting a lot of time. So efficiency is definitely key. Self-teaching is definitely, from my experience, more rewarding than somebody just telling you what to do, because chances are they're going to want you to learn stuff that they want to learn, and that is definitely not very fun, because the whole idea of this is to really just get a new skill that you enjoy doing, and self-teaching is the best way to teach yourself the best songs you want to learn, and taking lessons with somebody who's always telling you what to do is not the best way to do that. I would say about 90% of people who do try to self-teach give up for these exact reasons, and we're just going to talk about how to plan and what exactly your planning should look like. So also quickly ask yourself, if you've done any of these things, then you're probably not doing it the right way. So just looking up, how do I play this song? Not ideal. Starting to play a song and you notice something was like a little bit off, chances are you missed a step, so planning could have saved you there. If you're practicing the same song over and over and over and you're not getting anywhere, then you're probably missing something. And if you don't know what you're missing, then you're going to be stuck there as well. And if you learned one or more songs and just kind of stopped learning, the chances are there that you're doing something wrong, because there's really no end to this. It sounds scary, but there's always going to be a way to push yourself. So if you ever like kind of give up and you're satisfied with your ability, chances are you really have some room for improvement, and planning will go a long way in fixing all of these. So on the left here we have what not to do. So what would it look like for somebody who is trying to teach themselves who doesn't know what they're doing? Well, chances are they're going to try to learn a song and it might not go well. So then they'll jump to a second song. And who knows, this could go better or worse than song number 1. But even if they learn that one, they'll just jump to another one. That might not go well, could go well, who knows. They'll jump to another one. And they'll try to learn songs. And if any of these don't go well, they're just probably either going to keep moving on to other songs or go back to ones that they've already tried. And if they've gotten stuck and they don't know why they're stuck, then it's just going to be an endless cycle of trying to fix problems retroactively that could have been avoided by a little bit of planning. So what does it look like when you do this the correct way? So step number 1 is always planning. You want to really ask yourself, should I learn this song? Is this out of my range right now? What do I need to know before I even try to play this song? Because there's a lot of building blocks to look at before you even jump straight to songs. songs are not the most fundamental building block of playing guitar. So after you do a good amount of planning, you want to then try to learn the song. So learning should be easier once you've asked yourself, should I learn this song? How hard is this song going to be for me? Things like that. And then after you learn what to do, that is when you practice the song. And practicing is probably the most important part of all of this. Muscle memory is going to really help you retain the techniques that you need to know. And all of this comes from not learning the song per se, but learning what to do in order to play the song, if that makes sense. And we're going to keep talking about this, but this is just a very general rule. After you've done a good amount of practicing, you want to say, and kind of stop and ask yourself, is this too hard for me? Is this too easy for me? If I'm stuck, why am I stuck? And just really, you got to ask yourself, is this going well? Am I getting too frustrated? Things like that are very important. Then after you've taken all these in, you say, all right, let me move on to something else, or try this again from the beginning, and either plan out again what I need to do and go back and see why this is so hard. Or if you are going to learn another song, pick a similar song that would require a same amount of planning and do everything again. So that is the correct way to do it. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. And as I said down here, failure to prepare is just setting yourself up to fail. So the planning, learning, practicing, evaluating. Planning in this, before you even try to learn a song, you want to just say, I got to pick some songs that I enjoy, so you won't get immediately frustrated, because if you're trying to learn a song that you like, chances are you're going to stick with it longer. So that's the first point there. You want to have some awareness of if you should even be able to play it or not before you try. So chances are you won't be able to play Through the Fire and the Flames first time you pick up a guitar. So just keep that in mind when you're creating a little list of a wish list of songs you want to try. Another really good thing to ask yourself is, what do I want to use to learn this song? Because YouTube is not the only resource out there. It's great for minor things here and there, but you don't want to be relying on one thing. So you want to have a little, almost like a library or a couple bookmarks of stuff to go back to when one resource isn't working. And last one there, not jumping around just because something is too difficult or too easy. You want to ask yourself, why is this easy? Why is this difficult? And then make your selections from there. In the learning stage, this should be where you kind of say, this song is or isn't in my range, and kind of either go back to square one or continue. And then you got to break the song down based off of difficulty. If you instantly pick up that it's too hard, like way out of your range, then you got to move on. Don't try to force something that you know is going to be way too hard for you. That is where a lot of the frustration comes from. And in this stage, this is where you want to pick a couple songs that you know are going to be good for you, but not so hard that you kind of just set yourself up for failure. In the practicing stage here, you're going to want to dive deep into the song that you do pick. So make sure it's not super difficult. You've done that in the first two phases, and then you're going to break down the different sections, so the intro, verse, chorus, things like that, and really look at how difficult it's going to be for you. And then when you are practicing, you want to look at which parts of the song are harder for you and why. You don't just want to get stuck and like watch a video of how to do this part. You want to know why you're even having some trouble in the first place. And you really want to ask yourself down here, if you are getting stuck, do you move on to a different song because it's too hard, or you just keep trying? That's a really important thing to ask yourself here. And then you also want to say, after you've done these first three, how do I feel about this? Because if you feel that it was easy, then yeah, go ahead and challenge yourself, pick something a little bit more difficult. But if you are really, really struggling, then chances are there's like a deeper underlying issue. You're going to need to go back and evaluate before you even try this whole process again. So if a song was too difficult, chances are you're going to have to backtrack, but it might just be a minor thing you can fix and keep going. But I would say more likely than not, you're going to have to start over and pick some different songs. So this is a pie chart I threw together of what the ideal phases would be. So you want to really do some research beforehand. Step one, that should be about 30% of your time. Step two, learning. That's kind of almost like practicing, but it's almost like a hybrid between planning and practicing. You want to try to do a little bit of it, but also maybe not dive all the way into it. And then 30% of the time is when you actually really dive in, really take a look at what you're doing, try to get the mechanics down, muscle memory, things like that. And step four does not have to be very long. Just quickly ask yourself, how did this really go? So here we have when you do get stuck, what percentage of the time does it happen in? So step 2 and 3, the learning slash practicing, that's going to be about half the time. So 50% of the time, you want to be making sure you're moving forward. Or the learning and practicing is really what does move you forward. And then about 50% of the time, you also want to be committing to this planning slash evaluating. Because if you don't do that, then you can never really be sure that you are moving forward, and you need to make sure you are picking things that are challenging you enough so that you are learning new things. One of these without the other is really just not going to work. So make sure you are doing each of these about 50% of the time. Here's one of my good friends and one of my star students, Michael, kind of touching on all of these ideas that we just talked about. He just said he tried to learn guitar through YouTube videos and other sites, but never found one channel or website to organize all of his needs. And that's really kind of the goal with everything here. I'm trying to consolidate all of the resources that you need to know in one spot instead of having to just mindlessly search around the internet, because that is really never going to work. All right, here's the really, really exciting piece of information I cannot wait to share with you. So in my time as a guitarist, I really saw a lot of techniques that did and did not work. And this rule of 7, I think, is probably one of the best ways to guarantee that you are moving forward in that stage we just talked about when you are evaluating and planning. This is the best way to ensure that you will be moving forward even when you're not actually practicing a song at that time. So let's take a look at what this rule of 7 is. So on average, this is a very rough average. I did a little bit of research, and it said the average guitar song will contain 4 to 6 chords. But I think that number is probably closer to 7, especially the more complicated that a song will get. A lot of really, really easy songs will have 3 or 4, but a lot of, I would say, not more difficult songs, but more intricate songs will have closer to the higher end. So that's kind of why I chose 7. And if you know most of the popular chords, you can play almost any song. So that's why learning chords rather than songs is so important, because if you're learning a song, excuse me, if you're learning a song, you really aren't retaining the necessary pieces of information you need. You really need to know what's going on behind the scenes. That is going to really help you learn more effectively. Because if you're learning a song, you're really learning the second half of what you should be learning before the first half. And then it's just going to make your life more difficult. So just to emphasize this point here are 4 songs that use the exact same 4 chords. So you can either learn each of these individually, which would take a while and seem overwhelming. So you could learn Don't Stop Believing, that would take you a while. I'm Yours, Country Roads, and Let It Be by the Beatles. You can attack one of those one at a time. Or you can really do some work in the planning stage and see, hey, these all have the same 4 chords. Let me learn the chords first. And then that will make your life easier moving forward. So that is why the planning / evaluating is super important. And I did pull this from a list of 72 or 73 songs that all use the same chords. So this is just a really small glimpse at what you can do with a little bit of planning beforehand. So what is exactly this rule of 7? Well, there are 7 days a week, and if you try to learn 1 chord per day, then you will probably hopefully learn 7 chords per week. And my recommendation would be to spend no more than, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes on learning one chord. The human attention span is about 7 minutes. So if you are trying to spend more than 5 to 10 minutes on one thing, chances are after a certain amount of time, you're just going to be wasting time and not really doing anything that's helpful to yourself. So I would say don't spend more than 10 minutes picking one chord. And 10 minutes out of your day is just a little bit over an hour per week. So 5 minutes a day would be about 35 minutes. But on the absolute upper end, I wouldn't go more than like a little bit over 1 hour. So as I said, attention span is about 7 minutes, so that would be your goal. Anywhere over 10 minutes on one chord, you're going to be wasting time. So really just look at it quickly, try to get the muscle memory, and focus on one thing for that day. Don't try to do too much at once. So as I said, once per day, and after one, you want to really take some good notes, try to write things down, try to memorize it as best you can, and you should have about 7 new chords every week. So that is a rule of 7. And yeah, there are hundreds of chords out there, so it might take a while. If you're feeling ambitious, you can try to do more than one per day, but there are a lot, and you want to make sure you get each one pretty confidently. So definitely try to do one at a time, and there are a bunch. So don't try to overwhelm yourself too quickly. So continuing on here, after 1 week, you should, on average, know about 7 chords. That's if everything goes as planned, and the average song, as I said, contains about 7 chords. So every time you learn 7 chords, you should set a goal for yourself to learn one new song. That is kind of the rule of 7, super simplified. So learning, as I said a little bit earlier, learning songs without the chords first is like trying to write an essay without knowing the alphabet. You really need to know the building blocks first before you can even try to put everything together. A bunch of songs use the same chords, so learning one song at a time would be a waste of time, and knowing the chords beforehand is really going to save you a lot of time. 7 chords per week, that should be your goal. But as I said, obviously that would be an ideal scenario, so if it takes you a little bit longer, that is not the end of the world. As I said, shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes. 5 minutes would be a pretty good number to shoot for, and that should add up to about 35 minutes per week. And you want to really work on being consistent. You want to pick one time per day that you set aside for this. Having a good schedule or routine is really going to go a long way, and you should be excited about it, because the more chords you learn, the more songs you can learn. So getting these pretty consistently and having some good confidence with each of these chords is really should be exciting to you, and should get you kind of fired up about learning a bunch of new songs. So every time you learn 7 chords, I would definitely set that goal to pick a new song to play and apply those 4 steps that we looked at before. Once you have 7 chords and you memorize them pretty well, write them down if you have to, you'll be well on your way, and that's when you can really start to look at which songs you need to start learning. So my timeline was a little bit different than this. I kind of developed the rule of 7 afterwards, and a lot of my time was spent learning songs, which was not great because these songs took a lot longer than it would have taken to learn just a chord. So it required a lot of aimlessly watching videos. And I would say, too, the learning process is easier. The younger you are, your brain is a little bit more receptive to this kind of stuff. But there really is no limit to when you can do this. And one more important note is having a good strategy like this. The earlier on you start practicing will just make your life easier. Because if you're not practicing correctly, chances are you are wasting a lot of time. So it doesn't really matter how much you are practicing. You want to make sure you're practicing correctly. So the more correctly you do practice, the less time you can spend on practicing. Because practicing isn't something that people love doing, but if done correctly, it should lead to results very quickly. And I love this quote on the left. I had to throw this in here. Practice itself does not make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect. So that is something to really keep in the back of your mind here. And as I said, developing these strategies, the earlier on you do it, the more success it will lead to more quickly. And it will really keep you from getting frustrated. Picking songs, as I said, is not a great approach, and that is usually why people will get overwhelmed. In part 3 here, we're going to quickly look at some 3 of the most simple steps I can offer you right now to becoming a guitar master. These are a little bit different than the rule of 7, and will just have a huge positive effect on your ability to learn. So what is your general graph of progress going to look like? It should look something like this. It's going to start off pretty slow. You want to start off with songs that contain about 3 to 4 chords. So that would just be a quick search, which songs have 3 or 4 chords. And the next thing you want to do is then evolve to the little bit more difficult songs, which I talked about. So those are going to have more chords, and chances are they would have a little bit more complicated chords. Not guaranteed, but you might start to see some major chords, some minor chords, some sharps and flats in there, things that you wouldn't see with easier songs. So that's going to be step 2. And lastly, one of the most difficult types of songs to learn is fingerpicking, but this is extremely fun. So that should be a lofty goal you set for yourself. So what is the main focus of your earliest song choices? You really want to focus on the chords here. You really shouldn't care if the song sounds super good or not, because you're really still just learning chords. So the main thing here is to get a mental library of chords as quickly as possible, and to just really develop the muscle memory and mechanics that come with some of the most basic chords. Once you have a really, really good handle on your mental library of chords, and you feel comfortable switching between them and things like that, that's when you want to move on to the more complicated songs. And here is when you can really start to expand your library of songs. So those can be mental, or write them down, or create some kind of playlist, so you really don't forget which songs you do know. Once you know the rule of 7 and you're just cranking out chords every day, chances are you can learn extremely quickly. So you might start to forget some of the stuff that you know, so it's a good idea to write these down. And once you have a good library of songs you feel comfortable with, that is when you can really start to dig into some of the difficult stuff. So that's going to be where fingerpicking comes in. And I think all songs is, I don't know if that's really accurate, because a lot of songs will have, I don't want to say a lot of songs, but there are a few that use different techniques other than the 3 that I've listed here. So it's probably not every song ever. Rock songs are a little bit different, but if you're just trying to do popular songs, acoustic songs, stuff you'd hear on the radio, that type of stuff, then this is what your general framework is going to look like. So the easiest one, 3 to 4 chords, this is really, as I said, where you want to develop your mental library of chords as good as you possibly can. Different genres will use different types of chords, so that is one more thing to keep an eye on. If you are using an acoustic guitar, you'll notice that it sounds a little bit different than electric, but the chords should be the same. And this is, remember, think back to planning and evaluation. You want to look at what songs contain, why they contain the chords that they contain, and what you should take away from each of those. I know for one example of this is a lot of country songs will use 4 chords. So country is a great place to start, and they will use a lot of the same chords. So keep a little note checklist of that. If you're noticing a trend where one artist is using the same chords over and over, that would be a good idea to start learning a lot of songs from that artist, because you would then know the chords and can just learn a lot of their songs really quickly. So as I said, stick to the rule of 7. If you are noticing a lot of songs are using chords you haven't seen, try to learn one of those chords on that day, and spend however many days you need learning the chords that you need for those songs. And when you do feel ready, you should be making some progress, but definitely don't expect to be cranking out songs in this stage. This is really where, as I said, you're focusing on the chords. The next step is where you start to get into a little bit more difficult songs, and here you're really focusing on the songs themselves. You should have a lot of chords memorized at this point, and this is when you have a lot of chords memorized. You want to have pretty much all the basic ones completely memorized before you move to this stage, because this is when you can focus on the songs and other parts that are going to be important, like strumming and dynamics, the volume that you play at, a lot of other minor things other than chords that make a song sound really good. So that is what you want to focus on this stage. And you should be able to, as I said, have not every chord, but a lot of chords in your memory that you can switch to quickly. And this is a stage where you can play just about any song that contains chords. This is going to take a really long time to get through. There's a lot of different genres that use a lot of different techniques and chord changes, but this is really where you want to focus on songs rather than chords. And this last point here is pretty important too. If you do notice that one of the songs you're trying has a chord you haven't seen, then chances are you might want to go back to step one and try to learn that chord, because chances are it is going to come up again. And then once you have that added to your mental library, come back to stage two. And fingerpicking is not something I talk a lot about for beginners, but this is really where you hear a lot of songs from artists like John Mayer, Ed Sheeran, just two examples I thought of. They use a lot of expert techniques, and a lot of their stuff, if you listen to, is mostly fingerpicking. And this is, you're pretty much out of the chord range. A lot of fingerpicking songs do use chord shapes, but you're not playing them the standard way. And this isn't really super important right now if you're a beginner, but just kind of to show you what your future would look like. And it does combine the chord shapes and the melodies of the song, so it sounds like there's a lot going on at once, and you're not really just a guitarist anymore. You're kind of acting as one or more instruments to accompany like a singer or any percussion or bass that's going on in the background. So fingerpicking is really cool, but that should be a lofty goal that you are setting for yourself to reach down the road. So just a quick review, 3 to 4 songs, those should be the first ones you're learning, 6 to 8 chord songs, and then fingerpicking is way at the top. First target is to learn as many chords as possible, and then focus on the dynamics of each song once you know all the chords. And then once you know a lot of songs, that's when you can really start to try to learn almost every song out there, with the exception of just a couple that don't use a lot of chords. So what do the strategies of someone who is using these look like? So after you do decide to play, a person who's setting themselves up for success, will probably not try to learn every song they can as soon as possible, because as I said, you need to know which songs to even try to learn. And then, yeah, exactly, you want to strategize before you learn the songs. So these are the strategies we looked at before. And someone who's setting up for failure, chances are they are going to wander through many online resources and would not really know why they're not making any progress. And as I said, they're going to try to learn every song they can and not really evaluate or set up any sort of plan before or afterwards to move themselves forward. So this is a good little diagram of what to do and what not to do. So one quick thing I wanted to also mention was, I would say about 99% of guitarists will take like a little break. Playing guitar is not something you can do every single day of your life, because as you all know, we're not full-time musicians. We have other responsibilities. So if you do take a little break, don't beat yourself up over it. As I said, I took a 2-year break, and I do regret it, but it did really open my eyes to what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. And stepping away from it is
perfectly acceptable as long as it's because of something else and not just a general lack of motivation. If it's a lack of motivation, then you might have a bigger problem going on. And as I said in this bottom point here, you don't have to learn everything as fast as possible. The rule of seven is just a very general framework for what you should and shouldn't be doing. You don't have to learn a chord every day. That might actually be really unrealistic for some people, but it should be. It's really important to set goals, and if you do want to progress at a efficient speed, then it is something you should strive to get to at some point in your experience. If you start off learning even like one chord a week, that is totally fine, as long as it's not coming from a point of, as I said, lack of motivation. If you have genuine time constraints, then there's really no worry. But if you don't really have any excuses, then you should be setting lofty goals for yourself. Another really quick breakdown is from an outsider's perspective. Something like playing an instrument can seem like super overwhelming and like it has a lot of moving parts, but all you really need is one guitar, right? You don't need multiple guitars. You don't need to spend a ton of money. You need one guitar, and you can learn every chord. And once you just have just a few chords, as I said earlier, that big list I found, you can learn probably hundreds of songs. So right there, you've only spent a little bit of money, you've put in a little bit of effort. Remember, it took about 5 minutes per chord, and boom, you should be able to play hundreds of songs. Now, it will take a lot of practice, and it won't happen overnight, but that's pretty much all you need to do. And once you have a full library of songs, there's no reason you can't do any sort of performance or start playing for other people and showing off your ability. So this is the easiest way I was thinking of breaking it down. And obviously, it will take a little bit more effort than the difficulty that I just made it sound like. But there's no reason that you can buy one guitar. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to just buy one guitar, learn a couple chords, and learn a few songs. It's really not as overwhelming as many people think. And the more motivation you have, the quicker all this should come into focus. And as I said, when you break it down like this, it's really not as overwhelming as it seems. If you talk to anyone you know who does play guitar, they'll tell you that the hardest step out of the entire process is just deciding to start. Because once you hit the ground running, and once you have everything you need to know, it really is it's just time. It's not a super difficult task. It's not something that is going to mentally challenge you. It's something that's going to physically challenge you, because there's no reason that anyone can't learn chords. It's just this switching between them, memorizing all of them. That is where you're going to run into trouble. So don't get overwhelmed before you even start. I would say the best things that have come out of me playing guitar have been just absolute endless entertainment for myself. Whenever I get a little bored, I'll just pick it up. If I hear a really good song on the radio, I say, ooh, I want to learn that. And after a couple of years, I can learn it in literally a matter of minutes. So it's really, really fun to just be able to do that. I've also met so many people along the way who shared similar interests to me, meeting through music, and then you find out that you have a lot more in common than you would think. Usually people who play guitar are similar in personality and other interests. So when you do meet these people, chances are they have a high likelihood of becoming one of your friends, which is always great. And one of the other things it's allowed me to do, these little circles down here on the right, I have actually learned some other instruments. I started off with guitar, and then tried a little bit of piano, and then drums, and I eventually joined a choir at my school, which has definitely been an interesting experience. But I can definitely credit all of these to starting with guitar. Honestly, it really just opened the door to so many other opportunities. Just another quick list of things it's allowed me to do. I've joined a bunch of clubs in high school and college. I'm currently in college, and I've met a ton of people through guitar. Other instruments, bullet point number two here, it really just opens the door into the world of music for you. And it's a world that a lot of people don't really think that they can get into, but all you really need is that one first step, and you just a whole range of possibilities become available to you. I've met a bunch of friends that I'm still really, really close with, and I do a lot of like jam sessions with my friends. We'll pick a song and we'll pick different parts of the song to learn, and when you play it with somebody, it's just really, really a great experience for both people. And performing is always really fun too. And if I really wish I had started using these techniques a little bit earlier, because I really just saved myself, or I would have saved myself countless hours of just like really being confused about why I was even stuck. So being able to know that you're stuck and know why that you're stuck is really important. And I really hope that this is going to save you some time and steer you away from all of the bad things that I did, because I really wish something like this would have existed when I was first starting out.
So, just a really quick recap of everything we've gone through so far. Thank you again for making it to this point. Let's take a quick look at everything we've gone over. This point here, why most guitarists give up. We said that's just because of a lack of planning beforehand and not having a good strategy when approaching how to learn a specific song. Point number two here was the rule of seven, which I walked you guys through, and that was trying to learn a new chord every day because chords are the building blocks, and those are really going to be more helpful to you than trying to pick a certain song and learning those. And lastly, here we looked at what a master guitarist will have to do to practice to really master their craft, and that shouldn't really be more than 35 minutes per week, because if you are practicing correctly, then there really isn't any need to spend multiple hours per week doing the same thing over and over. If you're doing it correctly, it should not take you too much time. So let me just ask you a really quick question about your experience with this video so far. Do you feel that your time watching this has been well spent? Do you feel like you've gained anything insightful about the guitar learning process and learning curve? And if so, let me ask you this as well. Because I have put together a program which really digs into all of these topics and will kind of hold your hand through all of this, because you really do need somebody to get you to the point where you can be self-taught. Being self-taught doesn't mean you teach yourself every single thing. You need to look at resources that have been put together by somebody else to teach yourself. So that is really my goal with this. I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to really take control of your own guitar journey and path. So that is the goal of this course that I've put together. So here is what this course could do for you. If you do decide to work with me, I will help you become the best guitarist you can possibly be. And I will do that by showing you all the strategies that I laid out in much more depth to help you learn as quickly and efficiently as possible. And the goal with this whole thing is really to just save you time. As I said, you shouldn't really be spending more than 30 minutes per week unless you really are requiring more practice than the average person. But the average person who is super motivated will not require more than 35 minutes per week. And if you really do want to teach yourself to learn your own kind of songs, I'll just give you the general idea. I'm not going to tell you exactly which songs that you should learn. I do show you how to play a bunch of songs, but those aren't the only ones. And after you do learn the ones that I show you, you should be able to move on and look at your own. And the fourth thing you can do here is really just giving you, as I said, a very clear roadmap and plan of attack of what to do when you are trying to learn, so that it really limits your level of frustration, because I can tell you that I was super frustrated when I first started, and I will personally tell you how to avoid all of those things. And as I said, I would kind of consider myself an expert in this area, and I will be a resource for you for this entire journey. So the 3 things you need right now if you do want to start playing and be super successful would be number one, a guitar and a computer. And chances are, whatever you're watching this on right now will work. So either computer or phone, doesn't really matter. Just really anything you can watch the videos on. And as I said a little bit earlier, anything with 6 strings doesn't have to be a super, super nice guitar. There's plenty of good options out there for under $100. I've even seen some as low as $50. So if that is something you need, or you can always borrow a guitar from somebody who already has one. That's a great opportunity, just so you don't really have to spend any money before you really jump into it. Definitely something to think about. And you will need some kind of guidance, and I feel like that is where I can come in for you. I will really just try to hold your hand. That is what this course is designed to do. It's for complete beginners to get you to the point where you can be self-taught. And as I said, if you have a little bit of motivation and this is something you really want to do, once you do have that roadmap, you will definitely be successful. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look at what is exactly included in this program. So I have looked at the total amount of content that I've put together already, and I would value it at just over $1,000. And that figure I'm getting based off of how much time the total videos are. So in module 1, it's going to be worth about 75, and that is really just the basics before you actually learn. Because if I were to charge somebody a price based off of one sit-down in-person lesson, a 1 hour lesson would be about $60, so $1 per minute. So that's kind of how I'm getting these figures here. So that's module 1. Module 2 would just be a basic jump starter toolkit. So that's kind of once you do actually pick up your guitar, everything you need to do before you start playing to make everything sound good. And then once we really jump into it, module 3, the chords and songs, that is where I show you all the chords that you need to learn first. Really just kind of walking you through which ones to learn, why you should learn the ones that you are learning, and why they're going to be important, and how to read chord charts, things like that. And that would take me probably the most amount of time out of all of these, so that is why that one would be about 200 and would be a little bit higher than the other ones. And then modules 4 and 5 is where we really, really, really dive in to some super fun stuff. There's a lot of like finger picking tutorials in there, things like that, and some super advanced techniques, and each of those would be about 100. And then I've also decided to throw in a few bonuses for you guys, and these are going to include a toolkit, which is just a master list that you can print out or just use as a reference while you're going through these with every single thing you'll need to know about guitar. Bonus 2 is going to be the chords reference chart. That is going to be a chart of every chord that I teach you guys. 3 is going to be a finger picking reference guide, so kind of like number 2, but just a guide of how to finger pick correctly. That's going to be super important once you get into the advanced things. And number 4 here is really something I'm excited about. So if you do decide to join, I will allow you to schedule one 30-minute online face-to-face call with me, and that is going to be, you're going to get one free 30-minute call. So if it was an in-person lesson, I would normally charge probably about $30 for that, but just for signing up, I will give you that for free, and that would just be something you have to reach out to me to set up beforehand, but after you enroll in the full course. So it's not actually going to be $1,000, as you can see from this number. $1,000 of guitar lessons is actually probably a little bit under what I paid. I spent 7 years taking a 1 hour lesson every week. So that was about $60 a week for many years. So I probably spent a little bit more than $1,000. So let me show you what I think it actually will be. So I was thinking about pricing it at about $197, and that would only be about a little bit over 3 hours of in-person guitar lessons. So that would be 3 weeks of lessons if you were to do this in person. So if it were to help you just turn if you do have a guitar already, if it helps you turn that from just a decoration in your house to something you can actually pick up and use, ask yourself, would that be worth this price? If it could help you meet, because I know it's just helped me meet so many people, and all these friendships. You can't really put a price on friendships, but if you meet a bunch of people from doing this and gaining the skill, you have to ask yourself, would that be worth this figure? And if you do decide to take additional action from this and join any sort of club or start like a group, like a band, as the example I said here, ask yourself, would that be worth the 197? And as I said, the bonuses, here's a little bit more of an in-depth look. This is what the PDF looks like. And this is just 2 screenshots that I took. It's a couple pages, and it's really just a visual aid for all of the videos that I've outlined. Number 2 is the Chords master reference library, and that is just a full PDF of every chord that I teach you how to learn, and you can print that out, or once you're enrolled, you will have complete access to that. Number 3 is the fingerpicking guide that I mentioned earlier, and when you are fingerpicking, it will be super helpful to have something like this. It is a 2-page PDF with pretty much every single thing that you will need to know when you are fingerpicking, because fingerpicking is, as I said, part of the advanced section of the course. So having something like this will just be extremely helpful. And as you see on the right side here, one song that we do look at in the course is Dust in the Wind, which is super fun, and that was the first fingerpicking song that I learned. So I figured I would also include that as the first song that you guys would learn as well. And as I said, bonus 4, that's going to be either Zoom or FaceTime or Skype or something like that, where you can really just ask any questions or concerns that you have. And it will be free for the first one. If you want to set up an additional one afterwards, depending on supply and demand, we would have to find a time that will work. But as I said, I really do want to see you guys succeed. So that is the point of this face-to-face contact, because at the end of the day, videos are a little bit less personal than in-person lessons would be, but there's no reason they can't be just as effective. So that is the point of this. So once again, just a little recap of everything. You're getting about $1,000 value, and normally I would charge about $197 for this program, but just for sticking with me and watching this entire training, which, as I said, thank you for getting all the way through here. This did take me a lot of time and effort to throw this together, but hopefully this was helpful for you. So I am going to be taking $100 off of this price point. So for you right now, it's just going to be $97. So I really hope that this is something that seems as a good offer to you. As I said, if this was a one-on-one lesson in person, I would normally charge $1 per minute. And as of right now, I think there's about 4 hours of content in the course. So if you do the math there, that is a lot more than $97. And if you do decide to buy right now, $100 off, and you're saving about 3/4 of the amount of money you would spend to sit down with somebody for 4 hours and take in-person lessons with them. So hopefully you guys understand just how good of a deal this actually is. Here is just one more testimonial from one of my successful students. They described the lessons as relaxing and educational, and they really did actually help her progress as a musician. She did make a lot of progress. We really dove into some songs together, and they are a full-time student. So it does show you that with these techniques, when applied correctly, you really can practice, or when you do practice correctly, it really won't take up too much of your time. So I want you to be my next success story. And once again, $1,039 about, just a rough estimate, but you are only getting it for, as I said, $97. And this is only going to work for you if you're a motivated person. And if you're someone who really wants to learn and you've tried aimlessly searching the web, then this will definitely be your next step. and it will probably be the most helpful thing that you can find, because a lot of other YouTube guitar channels or other online programs will just kind of throw videos at you, and they don't really tell you which ones to watch and when. So this just kind of gives you a complete roadmap of what to do. And as I said, you can work alongside me and my other students who have actually had genuine success before. And as I said, I have probably faced all, if not most, of the same obstacles that you've already faced. So if that's something you want to talk about in that one-on-one call, then please do that, and I will tell you exactly how I got around those. So if you head to my website, getstartedguitar.com, I can show you exactly what to do. If you click on the right side here, that will bring you to the full course. And then this is kind of my home page right here. If you click any of these buttons, then that will bring you right to here, and this is where you finalize the process to enroll. So as I said, just 97, and because you have been a good sport and gotten all the way through this, it's just going to be $97 today. And this is a limited time offer. There's a good chance that this will go up again in the future, probably back up to $197. So if you're looking to save $100 on a lifetime access to me as a guitar resource for you, then please consider signing up today. And I really want to thank you again for getting all the way through this. This is a great opportunity to start learning guitar right now, and I really hope to see you guys there. Please reach out to me on Instagram or through my email if you have any additional questions. My Instagram is getstartedguitarschool, and my email is getstartedguitarschool@gmail.com. So please reach out to me. I look forward to hearing from you, and I also look forward to seeing you guys in my program. Thank you for watching.